Hi, this is Jeanette Comerford from the Happy Thoughts Ink Spots blog. I've been asked lately a lot of questions about watercoloring, and so I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I use when I watercolor. The first thing is this is the ink I use, Ranger Archival ink. It is waterproof, and this is in jet black, so that's the ink I use. I use a variety of watercolors, so I do use Twinkling H2O sometimes, but the base of most of my watercoloring is these re-inkers. So I have this little palette, and I add my drops in here, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but I have actually gone in with a Sharpie and written down the colors on the top of the lid, so I know what colors they are. Sometimes I do little mixes, so they're off to this corner. What I don't have in re-inkers, I will go ahead and use either the distress markers, or I will use the actual ink pads. So basically, I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I watercolor, and we'll take it from there. The other things you're going to need are obviously paintbrushes. So these are the ones I use. This one says 00 on it, and this one says 1 on it. And these are Winsor Newton brushes. You're going to need obviously some water. So I have mine in a cute little glass, and a paper towel, which I have off to the side. The image I'll be working with is the new Zodiac image Virgo Tilda. And I may not be able to show you all the coloring in one video. It takes me an awful long time to watercolor. So I'll get that inked up. Oh, and the paper I'm using is this one here. It's Canson Montval Aquarelle. It's 300 grams or 140 pound paper. Okay, so I ink that up. I'm going to go ahead and add it to my paper now. That. Also, I find with that ink, it's always best to sort of just clean off your stamp right away if you don't want to get any staining on it. So I'm just using a baby wipe for that purpose. Alright, so I'm going to flip this open. The color I'm going to be starting off with is Vintage Photo. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and I'm going to go and grab a little bit of Vintage Photo. And maybe I should zoom in for you here. Let's zoom in and move this over a little bit. There we go. So I work on really small areas at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Then I'll rinse my brush off, tap off the excess water, and then I'm just going to go right beside that ink, and I'm going to soften it out a little bit. I'll do it again. So I guess what you want to do is just get rid of that harsh line. So once that's done, I'm going to go move over to the other side. And I'm going to have to move my paper. just so it's at a better angle for me. So I'm going to go in this side now. And I'm using the finer brush of the two that I showed you. This would be the 00 that I'm using. So again, I am just softening the line. I'm going to rinse my brush off, tap off the excess again, and I'm going to soften off this line. So really, when you're doing this, you really want to sort of get rid of any water lines or anywhere where you can see it's not a fluid sort of transition to color. Okay, so I'm moving it over again. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom portion. And I guess I should show you, when I'm grabbing the ink, woo, there we go. Okay, I'm just grabbing like a really teensy tiny bit, sort of dabbing it off to the side. I don't want a whole bunch of ink. So when I do the face, I usually sort of start at the bottom middle and then swing my way back up. If you ever have too much water on your brush, just go ahead and wipe it off on your paper towel. Now I'm going to do I guess would be the last quadrant of the face. So you can see that I separate my face into 4 different sort of areas or quadrants. And I move my paper pad or my piece of paper around quite a bit. You can see the more that I sort of blend and work, the lighter the color becomes. Okay, so that's the face. We're going to let it dry a little bit before I go in with the next color so that I don't mess it up too much. So we'll just do the arm. So it's the same thing. I am just going to come around here. So I'm just going to do the arm, I would say, in 2 steps. So you can see that this is sort of something you can't really do if you're in a hurry to color. There, I just got a little bit too much water. I left too much water on my brush, so that's a bit too dilute, but we'll just soften it out and we'll go back and add some more of that ink if we need to once it's all dry. If ever your ink goes out of the line, with a nice clean brush, you can just wipe it away. It's that easy. So we're going to go up now, and I'll show you the next step I do with the face, because it is pretty dry now. And that is to go in with Tattered Rose. So it's a nice sort of, not a flesh tone, but it's got a nice pink tone to it. And this is going to make the face, it's going to make a really pretty color for her skin. So same thing. I add it on and then I brush it down. I do come down a little bit more into the white area than I did with that brown color with the vintage photo. But again, I'm being careful to make sure there's no harsh lines. Oh, I think I was completely out of the frame there. Sorry about that. You see, I add a little bit more of this color than I did of the brown color. Okay, so the face is done. We're going to let it dry a little bit. I'm going to show you now how I do the hair. And what I'll do is I'll show you with the distress markers in case that's what you have. So I'm going in with the scattered straw. And the great thing about these markers is you can really go ahead and add the color to the whole part of what you're coloring. So I'm coloring the hair. I can go ahead and just add that color to all the hair. Whereas if I had been working with the re-inkers or the ink pads, I would be doing this sort of step by step. So with these markers, I find it's a little faster. Alrighty, so you see how fast that went. So now I can just take the larger brush now, is what I'm using, the number 1. And I will just soften out all that color. Alright, so you need to give that time to dry. I'll show you in the meantime how to do the cheeks. So again, with my number 1, I'm going to add the cheeks. And what I do is I take, I make a mix, a 1-to-1 ratio mix of, tattered rose and worn lipstick to give my cheek color. So I mix that on that little white palette I showed you, and that's what I use for the cheeks. So that's sort of one cheek, and you just kind of work with it until it's looking the way you want. Sometimes you really have to step back, but sort of move your head back a little bit from what you're coloring to get a proper look of what you need to fix. Sometimes it's hard to see if you're so close to what you're coloring. So that's the first cheek done. And I'll go ahead and add the color to the second cheek. Okay, so we're going to leave that for now, let that dry a little bit. My hair is dried, so now I'm going to go in with, let me find it. Okay, I'm having a hard time finding the color I want. I know it's here somewhere. Here we go. It's frayed burlap. And this is going to give me my dark shadows. And you can see I don't use nearly as much of this as I did with the scattered straw, because it would just overpower my coloring. Okay, since I think this is really running over, I will show you here what I do. So I've just sort of added the color to that first half of the hair. I'm going in with my smaller liner now. And you're going to see me bring that color up, blend it up, but not necessarily blend it all the way over the scattered straw color. Okay, so that's that sort of first half section of her hair, and you can see the difference between the two sides now.